Hello and welcome into an Irish Hello Friday prediction show. Going to be talking some college football conference championship games and who we like in each of those, as well as NFL's, what are we in, week 14, 13 slate, something like that. So home stretch of NFL football, big weekend for college football. We'll start with last night's Thursday night game. Finally, a really good Thursday night game. Both teams were kind of a win now mode. We have a chance to miss the playoffs, a chance to make the playoffs if you're the Cowboys. Both teams needed it. Detroit put up 44 points on the Cowboys, and it was a game that they jumped out first, punched them in the mouth, and then Dallas, that offense is still electric. They were without CeeDee Lamb for most of the game, and still they were mounting that comeback. It still felt like Dallas was in the game, even in the beginning stages of the fourth quarter, and then that defense just crumbled once again. Jahmyr Gibbs torched them, and Detroit puts up 44 points on the Cowboys' defense, and it's a big blow to Dallas's playoff hopes. They're still in the hunt to chase down Philly, possibly for the NFC East division crown. Philly has the Monday Night Football game this upcoming week against the Chargers. We can get into that a little bit later, but it was a big win for Detroit, who they were interviewing Jahmyr Gibbs after the game. And Kaylee Hartung, the Thursday Night Football sideline reporter, read a stat, and she said that in Jahmyr's 3 seasons there, Detroit has never lost back-to-back games, and that stat held true through last night.
There was also another stat I saw regarding Jahmyr Gibbs, who, by the way, is just so phenomenal. I mean, I think if he doesn't have David Montgomery in the backfield, there's more of a camp that's saying he's the best running back in football. I know that's a weird sentiment, but I really do believe that because there's another elite back in there, it's tough to fully get bought into that number one running back agenda when Bijan Robinson exists, Christian McCaffrey exists. But he's next level. I believe before his age 24 season, he has the second most rushing touchdowns in NFL history, and the only one above him is Barry Sanders by like 1. So Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't turn 24 until I think March of next year, so he'll be passing that. And the Lions offense is still a juggernaut, despite not having Ben Johnson and having Dan Campbell kind of with makeshift coordinators he had to throw together when his 2 best when he got head coaching jobs. They showed that that offense still can be elite. And on Dallas's side, when you give up this many points, you can't help but think, what if there was a Micah Parsons? Or what if you had a next level defensive force? And for Dallas, they're bad on the road too. They're not good away from Jerry's world.
Yeah, it was a game where Jared Goff only got sacked once, and on the other side, Dak Prescott was getting hounded all night. He took 5 sacks. Jahmyr Gibbs only 43 yards rushing, but he's got that Christian McCaffrey type style to him. Incredible pass catcher. Had all 3 of his touchdowns on the ground, but he had the majority of his yards through the air, 77 receiving yards on the night. And he's so fast, and he gets he gets to that top speed so quickly compared to others. So good win for the Lions, big win for them. Cowboys still there. And you saw the offensive fireworks at parts last night, but you hope to get CeeDee Lamb back as quickly as possible after he suffered a concussion. And they got to get that defense figured out. And on the defensive side of the football for the Lions, they lose another. Brian Branch goes down without an injury.
Awful.
It's just one after the other for that secondary especially. They're going to have guys that we've never heard of play meaningful football for them down the stretch. So keep an eye on that in terms of overall ceiling for the Detroit team.
I've been really impressed, too, with how Aiden Hutchinson has recovered from his injury. It's
he looks same old Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, just a lot of quarterback pressure last night was making Dak Prescott's life pretty difficult. So the Lions, I mean, it's kind of like the Niners situation where you have enough injuries, it's hard to really believe.
Overcome, yeah. So what's the point where you can either get to the quarterback with the help of your secondary and coverage, or you just got to get to the quarterback with your defensive front, and that's what the Lions have to do, as that secondary is really banged up. It was banged up heading into the season, and it's just gotten worse since there. All right, college football, coaching carousel news. Penn State was the team left, like, what are we going to do? They landed on Matt Campbell months ago when they first fired James Franklin. I was like, this is the guy they need to go after. They played around with it a lot. There was tons of names thrown out these last couple months, and they land on the fantastic coach out of Iowa State, Matt Campbell. 10 seasons in Iowa State history, they have had a winning record in conference play. Matt Campbell was the coach for 8 of those 10 seasons.
Wow.
So it is a hard place to win. He has done it consistently. He has made it a norm. They were one of the Big 12 favorites coming into this year to win the conference. They were just there in Arlington last year against Arizona State. He is a fantastic football coach. and now he's going to get a boost of resources at Penn State.
Yeah, it is a home run hire. The one thing that I wonder is, was this like plan D? Like, if everything went to plan, do they have a different coach right now?
I think they do.
I think they do, which is weird because, as you mentioned, Matt Campbell might have been the best option.
I thought he should have been, yeah.
So it's almost a blessing in disguise that these other coaches didn't take it, like BYU's head coach and a lot of other options that were considering it. Matt Campbell's going to do wonders. He got in at the right time now, too, with the portal and everything, so he could probably recoup those guys that transferred. But it's going to take a strong effort because there were a lot of flips as soon as James Franklin went to Virginia Tech.
And we talked this whole week about the Lane Kiffin situation, leaving Ole Miss while his team was in a playoff chase. Penn State's lucky in the fact that if Iowa State was right back in Arlington this upcoming weekend, he is not taking that job. So that's the kind of coach he is. Players rave about playing for him. That's why he's such a good recruiter for trying to lure guys into a spot like Ames, Iowa. He's just a fantastic players coach, fantastic football mind. He's the real deal, and he's a complete package, and I think he'll succeed pretty quickly at Penn State. All right, we have two of the big-time conference championship games tonight. They're both in the group of five. The Sun Belt, Troy versus James Madison, North Texas versus Tulane. We're going to talk about the games that have playoff implications, and those two definitely do. They finally ranked James Madison in this week college football playoff rankings. They're at 25, but that opens the door, as we talked about that ACC chaos scenario, where if Duke wins Saturday night, the ACC championship against Virginia, and James Madison takes care of business against Troy tonight, then they will be one of the last two teams in the college football playoffs. It'll be them and probably the American champions. So James Madison, they need to win tonight. They're 23.5-point favorites in a conference championship game. That's nuts. And then they are huge Duke Blue Devils fans tomorrow night.
Yeah. For James Madison, they're in a good spot to put on a show. And we talked about that before he went on, but to prove to the committee that we belong in this sort of position. So late in the game, it could be a different approach than just taking the win.
They're going for style points for sure.
Pedal to the metal. But with all the parity that's been, I feel like there's been a lot of parity in college football this year, aside from Ohio State just dominating everybody. That's kind of been the outlier amongst storylines. But to have two group of five teams then make the playoff in a 12-team scenario when there's all these teams that are getting left out of the mix, I think that would only add to it. So it'd be really cool.
They have a fantastic quarterback in Alonzo Barnett, and he doesn't get talked about on the national stage, but he should, and I hope people watch him tonight. It's a big spread for a reason. They are the class of the Sun Belt. They have been all year, and I think they'll win handily tonight. And as we said, they're going to try to add style points to it. They're going to try to run up the score. They definitely feel more comfortable that they have a number by their name now because now they know for certain that they are ranked ahead of Duke. If that was even a debate, Duke is 7-5, but you never know with power conference versus group of five teams. But they are officially ranked ahead of Duke, which means, like I said, they win, Duke wins. They're probably the 12th team in to the college football playoff. That 11th team, it's going to be North Texas versus Tulane probably. Winner gets in is how it's probably going to shape up. North Texas ranked one spot ahead of James Madison. Tulane at the number 20 position. This game is in New Orleans at Tulane Stadium. North Texas, though, 2.5-point favorites. That tells me all I need to know. I'm going North Texas. I think they're a high-powered offense. Drew Mestemaker is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Not to mention just a group of five. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Eric Morris just took the Oklahoma State job. Tulane's head coach, Summerall, just took the Florida job. So it's a battle between two coaches that know they're going elsewhere. James Madison coach Chesney, he's going to UCLA too. So a lot of coaches tonight coaching that won't be there next year. But when you look at these two squads, I think it matters that Eric Morris was knowing he was going to Oklahoma State days before this whole scuffle with the SEC coaches figuring out who they were going to be. Summerall was not knowing if he was going to be at Auburn or Florida, and he lands at Florida. And it just happened a couple of days ago. Morris knew he was at Oklahoma State. It was a much easier news-breaking progression with his team, I would have to imagine. I think that could play a part into a game like this where I think there is probably more stability in that North Texas locker room than that Tulane locker room possibly. And they might just be the better team overall too.
Yeah.
Better quarterback on the field.
Yeah, it's a great point. They've been putting up ridiculous numbers, over 40 points a game. And Tulane has always kind of been, you talked about the class of the Sun Belt being James Madison. Tulane's been towards the top of the American every season. But North Texas making a statement tonight would do a lot for them as a program. And I also noticed that 2.5-point spread. So I'm going with the Mean Green to get it done by a touchdown.
So those are the 2 Group of 5 games. Saturday we have the 4 Power Conference Championships. We start at 10 a.m. Arizona time with the Big 12 title game in Arlington. ASU will not be able to defend their crown. It'll be BYU versus Texas Tech. So 2 new teams that we did not see last year. Texas Tech, number 4 ranked team in the country, trying to solidify a first-round bye in the college football playoff. BYU needs to win. They win, they're in, probably knocking off Notre Dame, who not in a conference. They do not play tomorrow. And I think that's why we saw the committee put Alabama a spot ahead of Notre Dame. They had to come up with some kind of excuse. They used going for it on 4th down late in that game as their excuse. But really, they just realized that they could not put themselves in position where the team on that cut line, that number 10 cut line, that would be bounced if BYU were to upset Texas Tech tomorrow in the conference championship game, because that means they get an auto bid in, and you're not dropping Texas Tech out. So they didn't want to have Alabama, a team that's also playing tomorrow in the SEC championship game, on the cut line as the team that would drop out if they were to lose and be replaced by BYU. So that's why they switched Notre Dame and Bama there. Now Notre Dame's the team that they're huge Texas Tech fans tomorrow, because if BYU wins, that means no Notre Dame in the playoffs, presumably. And Vegas thinks they have a good shot, Texas Tech that is, to win. 12.5-point spread. I think the spread's too large. I know Texas Tech crushed them when they played in the regular season. I think BYU is a good enough team to keep a game like this close, even against a team that's much better than them talent-wise. So I think they keep it close. I would take Texas Tech to win, but somewhere between that 7 to 10-point range. I think BYU to cover is a smart bet if you're looking at it on a money-making side. But I think Texas Tech wins, and they punch their ticket to the first-round bye.
Yeah, I'm on the Red Raiders, too. They've just been a juggernaut in the Big 12. They have one of the best pass rushes in the Big 12 in the entire country, led by David Bailey. And that's what gave Bear Bachmar a lot of trouble in that first game. Was this is a true freshman, and he's going against guys that are going to be in the NFL maybe next season. So it was a tough adjustment. BYU's a really good team, and I think with Satake staying around, that gives them a lot of extra motivation that not only does he believe in us, but we have a lot to play for this season. I'm still going to take the Red Raiders. I agree. By 10 points, I think that BYU would cover this spread. And another thing to mention, this is, I believe, one of the first times a Big 12 championship is completely sold out, I read somewhere.
They set an attendance record.
Yeah, so that's going to be an amazing environment. Last year's, it was Cam Scadaboo, and despite him being so dominant, he put himself on the national stage. I think in this Texas Tech game, Texas Tech BYU, there will be another guy that has maybe gotten some shine, but David Bailey, for example, doesn't get a lot of praise if you're just watching college football and turning on the TV. He can make a huge impact in a game like that.
He's still the sack leader in the entire country with 12.5 on the year. So fantastic player. He made his presence known. Texas Tech, that's their one loss of the year, was here in Tempe against the Sun Devils, but he had like 3 sacks in the first quarter, it felt like. So fantastic player indeed. Last year, going to that Big 12 championship game, thinking it was going to be a really evenly matched close game, and instead it got a blowout.
Yeah.
This year, maybe it's the opposite. People thinking it's going to be a blowout, another one in Texas Tech's favor. Maybe BYU hangs around a little bit. They are an 11-1 team. Texas Tech's the only team that's beat them, so they're a solid squad. Georgia, Alabama, kickoff at 2 p.m. AZ time from Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. This is another rematch of a regular season game that went Alabama's way. This is Georgia's only SEC loss. That was the game where Bama came out early, leading by a lot at halftime. Alabama did not score a single point in the second half, but their defense was strong enough to keep Georgia away and get that victory. Bama has since lost to Oklahoma to go with their loss in week 1 of the season against Florida State. So they are 10-2. Georgia's 11-1, but Bama technically got the number 1 seed in the SEC because they have the head-to-head record over Georgia. So this is the SEC's 1 seed, which is another point to make where even if Alabama loses this, the committee cannot take the SEC 1 seed pretty much, even though there are teams ranked ahead of them. But they can't take the SEC 1 seed and drop them out of the rankings. So I think even though Alabama's hovering around that 9-10 spot, they are safe, I think, no matter what. Bama was really the team, one of the first teams left out last year. They're not going to do that again. They're not going to punish a team for losing a conference championship game, especially if it's the SEC. This is shaping up to be one of the better games of the day. Georgia's 2.5-point favorites. That'll be a lot of Georgia fans there. SEC game always played in Atlanta. Georgia fills that place. Ty Simpson is the better quarterback on the field in this football game, but I think Georgia crosses off most of the boxes outside of that. I have Georgia. I don't think they will lose twice in the same calendar year to Alabama. I have Georgia getting revenge and winning this game. It'll be a good game, though.
Yeah, it'll be a phenomenal game. I agree with you on the Ty Simpson point. Even though Georgia is only a one-loss team, I think I mentioned it to you before, but I'm not sold. And I think it's because it's a different sort of pass rush, and it's not as dominant, and it's not as, this is Georgia football, and we're going to go and hit you and make our presence known. They've won a lot of these games. They were close with Alabama. They should have won that game if their offense was anything. But I think Alabama's going to win again. And I like how they're getting it going towards the end of the season. It was a gutsy performance in the Iron Bowl, but they're still waiting to hit that next level. And both teams have a lot to prove. That's the beauty of the conference championship games. I think Alabama wins this game by 3 points, super close down to the wire, and some sort of game-winning field goal.
Bama has not proven they can run the football at all this year. Jam Miller might not be available tomorrow. That only hurts that category. I think if Georgia, now knowing full season sample size, they know that Bama's pretty one-dimensional for being a top team in the country. I think they take advantage of that, take advantage of Alabama's vulnerabilities. But this is my favorite game of the day. And it should be a good one. So we differ on that one. I'm going with Georgia. You're rolling with Bama again. Then we get into the Big Ten and ACC championship games. We'll start with the ACC, Duke versus Virginia. Duke somehow here at 7-5 record overall, but all the dominoes fell the exact right way, and Duke gets into the ACC chip game because the tiebreakers ended up being they needed SMU to lose to California in that late night game Saturday, final conference game to be played this year, and it happened. And so Duke gets in versus Virginia. This was the scenario that everybody was talking about before Duke and Virginia just played a few weeks ago, where it's like, okay, if Duke wins that game, they're probably in the ACC championship game. And then if they win that, the ACC might not be represented in the college football playoff. Well, Virginia handled their business a few weeks ago in the regular season, but enough results happened where we still get this in the ACC chip, and we still have the possibility that two of the teams we see tonight are in the college football playoff 12-team field over the winner of this ACC championship game. If Virginia wins, they're in. They're the 17th ranked team in the country, but if Duke wins, sitting there at unranked 7-5, they probably won't be in because there's no guarantee that the ACC champion gets into this thing. It's just the 5 highest ranked college football conference champions, period.
Yeah.
So,
with how the ACC has gone this year, it makes me want to pick Duke, just because it
would be the funniest result possible.
Right, with all the parity, with the preseason expectations being Clemson could win the national championship, and then they fall flat on their face, and then Miami's supposed to be really good, and they're going to probably miss the playoff. It coming together and having Duke win would be quite ridiculous. I don't even know who to pick. I mean, this is one of those games where it's like, your guess is as good as mine. I'd probably pick Virginia if I was a betting man, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. It's going to be a close game, down to the wire, probably a lot of funky turnovers, and some team comes out on top.
If you tell me to start naming the teams I think are just the best in the ACC, even at this point of the year, it sounds crazy, but Clemson would probably still be in my top 3. Yeah. I'd put Miami there for sure, and I'd probably put Louisville there. And we haven't gotten to Virginia. We sure as heck haven't gotten to Duke. And it's still the two teams we're watching tomorrow. I have a hard time believing Virginia, even if they win this game, will have any shred of competitiveness in whatever team they draw in the first round of the college football playoff. I think Virginia will win this one just to put to bed because now everybody knows about, like, oh my gosh, the ACC can miss the playoffs. Yeah. Now everybody's on that. I think I think Virginia is just the better team. They'll win this game, but they outmatch Duke. Duke is a good offense. Darian Mintz has had a fantastic season, but yet they just lose games. And they lost to UConn despite a good Minson performance a few weeks ago. It's just they've lost games they shouldn't have. That means they will usually lose games they should. Virginia is favored by 4 points in this one. Vegas thinks they get it done again, and I'll go with Vegas. I got Virginia taking it down, but it's not like I've watched these teams consistently this year. And then the big game of the night, Ohio State versus Indiana, 2 undefeated teams. They're the only undefeated teams in the entire country, both from the Big Ten. They got away without playing each other during the regular season. Well, now we get it in the Big Ten Conference game, number 1 versus number 2, Ohio State versus Indiana. Ohio State enters, as it stands right now, as 4-point favorites in Lucas Oil Stadium.
I think that's just an easy cover. I mean, I could be hyping up Ohio State a little too much, but they haven't shown anything for us not to believe that they're the best team in the country, the overwhelming favorite to win the national championship. And I think that Fernando Mendoza's the Heisman, so this would be your Heisman moment, I guess, to, before the regular season ends, put on one final show. But I still got to go with Ohio State and to cover. I say they win by 10 points.
Ohio State just had no adversity. I mean, that's a feather in their cap because it's not like they've played around with their food and been in games where they're being tested. They've just dominated every single one of their football games, and even their closest margin of victory was 7 points in week 1 against Texas. But if you watch that game from start to finish, you never gave Texas a shot in that one. Ohio State was by far the more dominant team, despite the close-scoring game. Indiana, that's where they have the leg up. If Indiana can keep this close, then they've been in those games. They had to come from behind and beat Penn State at the buzzer with a fantastic drive orchestrated by Fernando Mendoza, the potential Heisman, and a fantastic catch in the end zone just to beat a Penn State team that was really hardly playing for anything. And they had to go on the road at Autzen Stadium in Oregon and win that game and stave off the Ducks. And so they have been tested far more than Ohio State has. So I think if that comes to it, then I think Ohio State needs this to be a close game. I really do. I think they need a punch-in-the-mouth moment, come from behind, maybe not come from behind, but just a close game where they have to be on their A game for all 4 quarters, every minute of those 4 quarters to beat Indiana. And I give Indiana enough credit to where I think that could be a game that plays out like that. I think Indiana could keep this close, and that's exactly what Ohio State needs heading into the playoffs for a potential back-to-back national championship run. That's what they got last year.
Yes.
They got beat by Michigan last year, and that's exactly what they needed to flip the switch and go on a run and win that thing. They need that again in this Big Ten championship game. They need a team just to show where they might have a weakness, and maybe they have 0 vulnerabilities. It's very possible. Ohio State has not shown one all year, but they need something to go Indiana's way in this game and have to overcome that.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing I think for Ohio State last year was getting punched in the mouth by Michigan. And it's your rival, and there's a sour taste going into the playoff. They were proving everybody wrong. Like, it was the same old story of Ryan Day can't get it done, and they have a loaded roster but can't win it all. And they did it. So to maintain that sort of grit and that edge of being the underdog just in their heads, even if they're overwhelming favorites, is super important. So that being a close game could benefit them more than not.
Yeah. All right, you got anything to add for college football championship weekend?
No, I'm fired up. It should be good.
Let's get into the NFL. We do our feast or potato famine picks each week. We got 2 each. We want to start with feast or famine?
Let's go feast.
All right.
Let's go feast first.
My first feast pick is going to be the Buffalo Bills at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. I know that the talk around this game is, can Joe Burrow do it again where they beat one of the top teams in the AFC upon his return? They just got it done on Thanksgiving night against the Ravens. And I think a lot of people are giving the Bengals a shot to go on a little run here in an AFC North that nobody seems to want to win. And maybe it's Cincinnati at the end. There's still a few weeks left of wiggle room to get there. They could be sitting at 9-8 at the end of the year if Joe Burrow can lead this team to a winning streak. And maybe that's good enough to get in the playoffs. Who knows? But this is a big game for them. I think the Bills prove that that's not the case. I think they handled their business quite well here. It's a 6-point spread in Orchard Park. Tough place to play. I think the Bills handled this game pretty easily.
I'm with you on that. I'm all over Buffalo this weekend. They've also been super inconsistent, so they've got to show it in multiple weeks back to back. but they're just at home, super tough to beat in Orchard Park, and especially after the Bengals beat the Ravens on Thanksgiving, it'd be easy to be like, they're so back.
Well, and them in these hyped up games, they've been fine. I mean, they handled the Chiefs easily. They came back against the Ravens in Week 1 on that huge game, and the Buccaneers-Bills game where people thought the Bucs were going to get back to their winning ways. The Bills handled that one, and so it's been the games that have cost them have been the ones that have creep up on them a little bit. They got blown out by the Dolphins. They've lost to the Falcons this year. Before that, it was a loss to the Patriots before we knew the Patriots were going to be this juggernaut, where now the next game that the Patriots and Bills play will be a huge contest. But they haven't really lost one of these marquee games, and you could argue whether or not this is a marquee game, but Joe Burrow has returned, and it's a new-look Bengals team. I think the Bills handle it, though.
My first feast pick is the Rams at the Cardinals here in Glendale. I think they're going to win this game rather easily. And I know they're 8.5-point favorites, but I think it's worth mentioning. I still believe this is the best team in the NFC. I think with how the Eagles have sputtered, and they've been my pick because just a couple weeks ago, they just kept winning. But you can't deny talent. And especially after the Rams lost to the Panthers, they've got to prove it to themselves.
It's a get-back spot.
It's a huge get-back spot. Cardinals today announced Kyler Murray's out for the rest of the season. It could not be going worse on their side. So I have the Rams winning this game by multiple scores and reminding the league again that we're still here.
Before they lost to the Panthers, but I think I'd still pick them. You asked me who I would take out of the NFC right now. It'd be the Rams. So I'm with you on that one. Textbook get-right spot here at State Farm Stadium. My second feast pick is going to be the Green Bay Packers at home against the Chicago Bears. If you remember Ben Johnson's introductory press conference, I think it was, he's asked questions about staying in the NFC North, where he was the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. He takes the Bears head coaching gig. He's given respect to Kevin O'Connell. He's given respect to Dan Campbell, his guy in Detroit. What he said about LaFleur was that he's like, I'm going to be very excited to beat him 2 times a year. And so I think it's silly to imagine that the Packers don't know about that comment. I think it's silly to imagine that LaFleur doesn't know about that comment. Yeah. And I think Green Bay will put an end to the Chicago Bears run of this is the number 1 seed right now. The Bears are the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're the number 1 team in the NFC North. And I think the Packers are like, whoa, we got this. And they're at home. I think it's a big-time spot for them to prove that they are the class of that division, that they could be potentially the class of the NFC.
And with a loss, too, the Chicago Bears would go from the number 1 seed to number 7, just like that.
That's crazy.
So that just shows you where the NFC is at. I had this as one of my famine picks just because it's the Bears.
Famine pick for the Bears?
For the Bears, just because it's the Bears at 9-3. And if you guys listen to our regular programming every morning, I talk about how I'm still just not going to believe in it because it's hard to. It's not just because it's Chicago. There's glaring weaknesses, and they're just finding ways to win.
Odunze just got ruled out for the Bears.
Also a big blow.
And they've won 2 straight games against NFC North teams. They blew out the Vikings, and then they handled their business against Detroit on Thanksgiving last week. How about 3 in a row?
Also, Vegas knows. 6.5-point favorites, that's huge against the number 1 seed in the NFC. What Vegas is telling us is we don't believe too. So I'm not going to.
Yeah.
All right, another feast pick for me. I think that the Commanders are going to beat the Vikings on the road. Jaden Daniels is coming back, and J.J. McCarthy is back, and he's been absolutely terrible. So I really think that this is a good spot for the Washington Commanders. They have an opportunity to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and I think that might be enticing, but Jaden Daniels just cares way too much. And I expect this to be, even against a Vikings defense with Brian Flores that is really good, Jaden Daniels coming back, playing complete football, and the Commanders getting a win.
They've lost 7 straight games.
Something's got to give.
They've done the losing part. I think they can afford to win a game. Jaden Daniels is going to want to get the job done in his return, playing a quarterback that was in his draft class. J.J. McCarthy, it's going to be rude to say, but I think I would take Jaden Daniels and his broken arm or whatever he had, his dislocated elbow. Even in that state, I might take him over J.J. McCarthy. That's just how bad Mr. 9 has been in Minnesota. So, Feast Pick recap. I'm heavy on the Bills, heavy on the Packers. Aiden was with me on both of those, and I'm with him on both of his, Rams and Commanders in their respective games. Let's get into our famine picks. My first famine pick was, and I would have liked this a whole lot more if they would have found another way to win against the Bengals last Thanksgiving night. But I'm going to assign famine to the Ravens, and I think this is majority with the Steelers. They have no business winning this game. They really don't. But Mike Tomlin always wins the games. He has no business winning. And the talk right now is about Mike Tomlin. Talk is about, is he going to return? I mean, I heard people talking about he could be the Penn State head coach next year. Like, he might not be the Steelers head coach next year. As crazy as that sounds, Rodgers is not playing well at all. Rudolph's been in and out because of some Rodgers injuries. Like, they shouldn't win this game. This is the Ravens a chance to retake the AFC North lead. Both these teams at 6-6 right now. Baltimore playing at home. They're coming off a loss to Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Like, all that points to a Ravens win. But in those games, Tomlin finds a way to win more often than not. And the Steelers are in a spot where their backs are against the wall as well. And I'm going to say Pittsburgh, it's a 6-point spread. I think Pittsburgh covers and they keep it close and they might squeak out with a win at the end.
I like it. I think the Ravens are going to win, but I totally get that just because the Steelers do that.
When the Ravens are that's a bad vibes team too right now.
Yeah.
They were winners of 5 straight, but you would not be able to tell that going into their game last week. Lamar Jackson has looked nothing like Lamar Jackson since coming back from injury. He was not practicing for the majority of this week as well, and I think he's going to go in Sunday's matchup, but it's just been weird. That offense is not performing like it should. The defense has had areas of concern this year, definitely an area of concern last week, allowing all those points to Cincinnati. So the Ravens, they're in striking distance to win the division and make the playoffs, like more than striking distance, but they don't look to be in that kind of spot.
Yeah, no doubt. My other famine pick, it's a little bit of a risk, but I think the Chargers are going to beat the Eagles on primetime at home.
I had this as a candidate.
On Monday Night Football. The Eagles that offense has been bad, and the Chargers' calling card and Jim Harbaugh's calling card is defense, and they get after you. And the Eagles are going to have to play well offensively to win this game. They have squeaked out 8 wins this season. It made me believe for a long time because I looked at that NFC and I said, who can really emerge as a team to make the Super Bowl? Well, now there's maybe 2 or 3 teams that you could take over the Philadelphia Eagles as we enter the latter stages of the season. The Chargers last week got right against the Raiders, putting up 31 points. They've won 4 of their last 5 games, I believe. They're hitting their right stride. The Eagles are kind of trending in the other direction. And I love a home underdog, so I'm going with the Chargers.
As soon as people were, myself included, were writing off the Chargers, I mean, I started writing them off after the Rashawn Slater injury news before the season even started.
Completely fair.
Then Joe Alt gets hurt. That's 2 of the best offensive linemen in all of football. They're on the same O-line, and now they're just both injured. I didn't think, and then Omar Hampton, the running back, gets hurt. I was like, how are they going to protect Justin Herbert? The running backs aren't going to be able to do it. The O-line's not going to be able to do it. And since I started saying all that, they have looked great, playing way better than the trenches would suggest they were. Hampton might come back for this game. That's a big get.
Huge.
But even if it does, Kamani Vidal is taking over that running back 1 spot valiantly. He has looked really good. He had a huge run last week against the Raiders. He's looked good. So even if it's a share split backfield to ease Hampton back into it, they've been running the football pretty well for their personnel.
Yeah, it's a good football team. And getting back as electrifying as a running back as Hampton is, that will change everything for Justin Herbert, who last week was already back to his normal self.
I'm going to say the Colts are my last famine pick. I think the Jaguars end up winning this division. I think it's going to come down to the Jaguars and the Texans winning this division. I think the Colts lose this one on the road at Jacksonville. I'm going to say vibes yet again. Really, the Colts, their good juju is starting to wear off. That beginning of the season where they were the fun team in the NFL, they were winning despite people not giving them a shot this year. They have turned the AFC South, them and the Jags and the Texans, into one of the most competitive and exciting divisions to keep an eye on throughout this regular season. I think the Colts lose to the Jags, and the Jags take over the sole possession of the 1 spot in the AFC South. Jacksonville's playing really well. Daniel Jones apparently playing with a partially broken leg.
Yeah, which is
and they want him
crazy.
out there. He has started to struggle. Jonathan Taylor is not running the football as well as he was in the beginning of the season. Jacksonville's defense has shown flashes of being one of the better units in the NFL. If we get one of those games, I think Jacksonville wins this pretty handily.
I'm on Jacksonville too. I think that they're just playing better football right now. Sometimes when you assess a matchup, if one team's going here and one team's going here, you look at that and you pick the team that's trending up. And the Jags have been great. This Coach of the Year race is really intriguing to me too, because Ben Johnson's there, Kyle Shanahan's there with all the injuries. Shane Steichen was at the top of that list before this drop-off. And then you got to shout out Liam Cohen. First year in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he's done a great job.
They're on pace for a 10-win season and are clearly trending in the right direction.
Sauce Gardner, their big deadline acquisition, and that secondary that needed a lot of work. There's a reason they went out and got Sauce. Not just because he's Sauce, it's because of the position he plays.
Yep.
That Colts secondary was struggling, and it was banged up before he got there. They avoided disaster in terms of the actual injury it was, just a calf strain, but he is not playing in this game. Look for Trevor Lawrence to have a little bit of a breakout spot, a big game for him.
Love it. Do I have one more Famine pick?
Well, your other Famine pick aligned with my feast pick of you were going with.
Yes. Well, I'll just say I think that the Texans are going to lose to the Chiefs this week. I keep doing it, Shay. I get on here every week, and it's not just because Shay's my guy. I just think the Chiefs are going to win again. And they're at Arrowhead. They're so tough to beat in Kansas City. The Texans need this win more than a lot of teams. I mean, I know they're 7-5, but you got to keep the pedal to the metal in that division, in that conference that is all of a sudden ultra competitive. But the Chiefs are at home, and they know they need to win.
If the Chiefs lose, they're done. I don't think they make the playoffs if they lose this game. Or they might have to. There's a legit chance where, well, especially if they lose this one, because Texans are one of the teams ahead of them that they're chasing in that AFC wildcard race. So Chiefs at 6-7. They would have to win their last 4 to get to 10-7. Who knows if that gets them in with how good this AFC has been. So it's a game they have to have, especially against a team that they are technically on the coattails of. So it's hard to imagine Kansas City is going to be below 500 at 6-7 this late into the season, but you never know. You never know. They're not playing great football right now. Vegas still likes them. They have them favored in every one of these games, and yet they're losing a lot of them. But they have been 5-1 at Arrowhead. Historically, they're very good there. One of the toughest places to play in the league. We'll see what Stroud can do against the Chiefs defense that needs to step up. I mean, there's been points the last few years where Patty Mahomes doesn't have a good game. So, all right, the Chiefs defense keeps the game well in hand, and the Chiefs can do just enough on the offensive side of the football to get it done. And the games where Mahomes has struggled this year, the Chiefs defense hasn't always been there to pick up the slack. And last week, Mahomes played a fantastic game. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and the Chiefs defense allows too many points, and they lose at Dallas's place. So they got to play better complementary football. We'll see if we can get it against a tough Texans defense.
I'm a big fan, if you're a betting man too, of primetime unders. I think this would be a good under spot.
It's low. It's 41.5.
And I think if it's already low,
Yep.
it could go even lower. Bounce back for Spags in that defense. The Texans defense is already one of the best in football.
All righty. Any other NFL games that stand out to you as we need to talk about before we exit here?
Oh man,
there's some bad games that we did not talk about. Titans, Browns, Saints, Buccaneers. That's perfect Buccaneers get right
Dolphins,
spot.
Jets.
Broncos, Raiders. I think the Broncos winning streak continues there. And then Dolphins, Jets, Seahawks in a blowout possibility spot against the Falcons. Maybe that one gets hairy for them. I don't know, but I still like the Seahawks as one of my favorite teams in the NFC as well.
The Broncos have to hope, and the Broncos got to find a way to somehow get the one. I think that the 2 seed this year in the AFC is one of the worst spots to be, because the teams on the bubble for that 7 seed or that are out of the playoffs are some of the best teams in the AFC. Right now, the Broncos would play the Bills. 70% of the public would pick Buffalo because they're just a better football team. The Broncos have this sort of magic rolling for them where they can't lose, but in the playoffs, all that goes out the window. And what if the Chiefs sneak in and they play them first round?
Yeah.
Or
even if it is a team like the Texans,
right?
That's a fantastic defense that you have to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a really tough spot. You'd almost be better off in a 3 or 4 seed at this point, and you get to play Indianapolis, and you never want to take away from playing a home game. I think that's big at Mile High, but the AFC.
It's been so good that now the Colts are in the 6th seed spot, barely ahead of the Bills, who are also 8-4 in the 7th seed spot. Colts had that fantastic start to the year. We're both picking Jacksonville in that game.
Yeah.
The Colts might not even make the postseason.
No.
Which is crazy to say, but.
And that's the parity. Both conferences, AFC, NFC, super deep. And when there's not that overwhelming threat of the Chiefs or the Eagles, and they're not towards the top of the conferences, you get this balance where you might make 20 NFL brackets this year, and
It's been fun football
all of them
this
are
year.
busted.
Been really fun football this year.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to win. I mean, in an NFL game, anything can happen at all times, but it's been even more that case this year.
It's been nuts.
So it's been fun. All right, that'll do it for another Friday prediction show. This will be the last time we see you guys for a while. We're going to try to do some shows. I think we're going to try to schedule one for next Friday.
Yeah.
Friday morning, maybe do something similar on Zoom and then post it on YouTube, but we'll feel that out.
And we'll be approaching bowl season. Another thing we'll be posting on Monday morning will be our winter meetings predictions. So
yes,
as long as no major guys sign this weekend, they will be on that list. And it's a fun time. Really fun.
Been a blast. Been a great semester
Thank
of the
y'all.
Irish Hello. Happy holidays.